Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We are AIS, and we are a leading Microsoft partner in AI and cloud transformation. Today, we've got an awesome team here to talk to you about lessons learned in regulated industries for AI projects. So we've done dozens of AI projects across commercial and government customers, and there is a lot of learnings. A lot has changed. We've got an awesome panel to talk about what we've learned along the way. So joined by me is Brent, Meredith, and Yard. They all support different areas of expertise in AI and cloud transformation. We're going to talk about some of the things that are going to help you navigate your next steps in your cloud transformation and AI journey. All right, so just kind of starting from the beginning, guys, a lot has changed in the early stages of AI adoption. Love to hear a little bit about what are some of the biggest differences you see today in terms of the early AI adopters and organizations adopting in regulated industries. Brent, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start us off on that one. Great question. I think AI has been around for a good long while with a ton of momentum happening over the past couple years, and so I think the number one thing for me in the difference, to address your question, is really just recognizing the exponential force that is upon us now with generative AI, and the fact that AI is now more like the internet in terms of the trends than it is other trends that we've had in the past. And I'll tell you why I say that. First of all, it's because there are specific industries and job functions that are fundamentally changed now with the development of AI over the past couple of years. The example that's easy to me to state is the discipline of software development. We have software developers now that are, instead of primarily concerned with writing code and figuring out the best architecture, they're moving to a place where they are the leader of a team of developers and agents together building software. And I don't know about the rest of the panelists here, but it's almost to a point in software engineering where you can't really see a way back from using generative AI to build software. So first of all, that's the biggest difference to me, and that the software engineering discipline is the one that's most tangible for me, Michaela, because it's just right in my face. But the fundamental difference is that the baseline of these job functions are now changed, and it's more like the internet in that sense than other trends in the past, because just like with the internet, job functions, roles, et cetera, have all changed fundamentally. And then we can talk about some other things as we go along as it relates to how AI is interacting with those job functions. Interested to hear that answer from others, but that's my perspective on it. Really just recognizing I keep calling it the exponential force that AI now represents, as compared to what AI was in the beginning. Good business value add oftentimes, but not driving change like it has recently.
I'll take that next. So from our experience early on, AIS has been doing AI for more than 2 years. And at the beginning, the focus was the curiosity that customers have, and they need a low entry level to get into AI. That was creating a chatbot, low risk. We have this publicly available document that we can chat because the trust was not there. But through time, we have seen customers becoming serious about AI, and not only chatting with documents, but also improving their workflow processes and making it secure. Do we have our environment support for AI? Is our data AI ready? Security, all becomes very important, and we see now the shift from having a chatbot into a well-defined and organized AI as part of the workflow.
And having those domain experts, right, Yard, that being an important part of how you're building what that application eventually becomes, right? You mentioned security. Security is at the beginning of the roadmap now versus kind of an afterthought or something only IT is concerned about. Meredith, can you talk about that and how organizations are starting with security as part of the conversation?
Yeah, one of the most interesting things, I think, about where we are now helping customers with AI in regulated industries versus a couple of years ago when we got started really is the security conversation, because it was very similar to years back when we were helping organizations move to the cloud, and that you'd say, I want to move to the cloud, but I don't trust the security, or I don't understand the shared responsibilities. We were having those same conversations again as we were talking about, enabling AI applications even in their cloud environment. So at first it was really about, how do we trust AI? How do we trust the AI model? And a lot of understanding around what additional risk is it bringing into your environment and things like that. Those conversations are certainly still happening, but what I've seen over the last year is a huge focus on, is my data secure? Is my sensitive data secure? And so we've done a lot of work helping customers in regulated industries address that first as an entry point, even before they're enabling, Copilot or Azure AI or other applications. Because if they don't have a clear view of what their data is being used for AI applications, or what controls they have on users being able to quickly surface sensitive data, that's actually one of the biggest risks, is that AI is just multiplying sort of existing gaps in, access control or unlabeled data and unprotected data. So what we've sort of shifted that conversation to is, how do we secure your sensitive data before you enable AI? And then secondarily, and kind of still very tied to it, is, what gaps do you have in your current infrastructure that's going to be hosting that AI application? Let's assess and ensure we're applying AI into an environment that's already secure, and you're using that zero trust architecture to prepare yourself for AI. So, still the same conversation in terms of how we're educating, leaders in this space, and how they prepare their entire infrastructure for AI, but then also really digging into an area that's been very far behind in zero trust, which is the data security pillar.
Right.
And really putting that into action, and putting it into actual restricted controls versus a nice to have on data security, because really it needs to be locked down before, for highly regulated customers, before you can even consider, wide use adoption of an AI product.
So important. Whether it's financial services and insurance, energy and utilities, government customers, defense contractors, regulated industry customers are really up against a lot in terms of trying to light up AI and be able to take advantage of some of those benefits. Can you guys share some of the common challenges? And I hear a lot of organizations starting with a quick win, something that they can use to build some level of comfort and really get started and help understand through doing. And can you talk a little bit about what those challenges are and how you've seen customers get some of those early wins?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that one, Michaela. I think a couple of the common challenges that we have seen on this journey, as we've been deeply involved, as Jared said, over the past couple of years. One is sort of a basic understanding, or what we're calling an AI literacy, for those that would be adopting artificial intelligence. And it doesn't have to be an expert level understanding, but it's really sort of just the key intuitive piece that to go from this is magic towards this is how it's working, so that you can best work on, shape your requirements for your business process, that sort of thing. And so it can come down to, what's a large language model in the first place, and how does that work? Or how am I teaching this large language model, teaching it about what I need it to do, and how is it learning about me? How does that actually work, and how can I best situate myself to take advantage of these tools the best I can? So one lesson is sort of just the key literacy across your organization, for all of your employees to take up at some level. And once you're there, I think you're in a good position to do what you said a minute ago, which is start with a quick win to get some momentum going and to prove some value. Now, on that though, we have seen the ability to get going quickly, but ultimately the momentum from that can drop off from time to time. And part of that is basically what's happening under the covers, back to that AI literacy piece. But B, also hitting on what Meredith said before about the data and the context that's around your POC to support it to take it beyond the next phase. And secondly, related to the data, how you're securing that data so that you're not doing oversharing and that sort of stuff. So common challenges like the perception of that, but also moving from POC with those foundations in place to go beyond the first 4 to 6 week engagement to get some real value. So that's my thought there.
Yeah, I can take before I talk about the common challenge. Let me say the success we see on generative AI. The successful ones are the one that are doing where humans were not able to do. For example, we have a customer, they need to do auditing on more than 100,000 projects they issue on SOWs, MSAs to meet the regulatory requirements that they had. So because of that sheer size, they were kind of hand-picking projects to validate. There's no human way to do this. I think AI is able to accomplish this 100% because of that automation that happens, the human-like automation that happens behind the scene. Those kind of projects are very high ROI and less touch, and they can go autonomous. What we have seen challenge is on when the AI agents are provided to our customers, they try to treat it as a traditional software. They interact like a report. I click one time and I see the dashboard. We need to do a lot of education to have that interactive challenge, question and ask again, and deeper question to ask the AI becoming a challenge. So that there's a lot of education that needs to go around educating our customers. These agents are smart. It's not a one-time question, but a follow-up question with a deeper knowledge on that specific business that you have. Along the way, one of the examples challenge we had is that HR chatbot, right? The customer was not, especially from the leadership perspective, they were trying to protect the message coming out of the chat to not be damaging to the organization. So they were kind of very hesitant early on to fully adapt the chatbot. So
yeah, and to add to that, in terms of challenges, I think going back to the security topic, organizations that are afraid to get started with AI because they haven't figured out all of the security guardrails and the data security and all of that will often step back and block AI usage within their organization, which is really a challenge for their company adopting AI. It's slowing down their progress, but also it's creating risk that they are going out and using public AI solutions with their sensitive data and using things online that are open source and not controlled within their environment. So that's one challenge that I see is this sort of overcorrection of blocking AI use at a lot of organizations because they just aren't quite sure how to get started and put that security guardrail in place. So I would say a quick win and one that we've been recommending and working with many of our regulated customers is how can we stand up that version 1 of a safe internal chatbot and a sandbox area where they can start to use AI in a secure and compliant way within their environment before they even go beyond, chatting with your data, just to give their employees a safe place to interact with AI within their organization versus going to the extreme of waiting until it's perfect and then giving users access, because they're actually additional risk by the fact that people are going to go out and use AI if there's something not available to them. That's just sort of the reality that we're seeing. So a quick win path could be setting up something internal. We've done that for many customers. Yara was mentioning the HR chatbot, but also understanding that it's just a starting place, and you may develop an even more mature version of that down the road, but not waiting till everything is perfect, but iterating on it and improving the security, but also improving the that proof of concept itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. We say iterative is the name of the game with AI. You got to move quickly because you're right. When that demand is there by your user base, whether that be internal or external forces, you need to have some sort of answer of starting with. Otherwise, they'll go to the unsecure alternatives. And Yard, you spoke about, the quick win itself is important. And, that high value ROI of processing 100,000 different documents or 100,000 projects, like that scale is huge. But if you don't have the education, the awareness, the change management, and visibility, like you said, Meredith, then it's not going to scale and reach its full potential. So quick wins are one thing, but it's the sustained longevity that you can continue on and monitor that's really going to go much further. I guess knowing what you guys know now, what are some of the best practices or patterns that you always recommend for customers? Meredith, are there any in security that you would start with?
Yeah, I would say continue on the theme of data security, at a minimum, having visibility of your sensitive data and where it lives, even if you are going to take a while to getting the actual controls in place is a must and is what we start with going in now, based on everything we've learned. And then also really pairing that with choosing a very strong structured framework that you're going to measure against and improve from a security perspective, whether it's zero trust or something else. Because one thing that we've seen is with the lack of regulatory requirements on how the government and other organizations need to put controls in place against AI. Like there are things in the works, but there isn't anything published that you have to go through an audit of a particular AI product, within your organization, like an extra standard. So right now people are falling back into a confusing loop of which standards should I be measuring AI against. So what I always come in recommending is stick with the frameworks that you are required to follow based on your regulatory compliance and speak to how you're securing AI in that way. And then also layer on things like zero trust that'll help you with those actionable data security controls. So those are I would say the two things that I would go in, based on everything we've learned, go in and kind of make those foundational requirements for starting.
Yeah. For me is AI is not a new line of business for you, right? AI should be aligned with the organization's business strategy. So the first thing we need to do is align where AI is alignment with the business organization, what we call it AI strategy. That AI strategy should be really empowering or accelerating the business strategy. So once you start with that, now you start analyzing the use cases that you have that align with your business. Those use cases define which AI tools, technology, services, data, it will align everything around that line. So starting with the business, making sure your AI is aligned with your business, and then technology. We may see a lot of AI technologies from different vendors, the infrastructure requirement, your AI readiness, all of that will be driven by your use cases. So I just want to make sure that customers understand that rather than picking the technology first and looking to the business, making sure you understand your business, identify use cases, and choose the technology.
Yeah, I love those two. Yared and Meredith hit one, focus on the business problem, not the technology in the beginning, essentially. And then also, Meredith, your point about data security and visibility and transparency into that one, that really resonates with me as well. I'll pick one on best practice that's a little bit more forward-leaning on some of the projects that we're doing today. And that's the idea that we're moving beyond this concept of prompt engineering, where we're requiring users to describe exactly what they need from the AI system, to a pattern in which we're collecting a bunch of data around the behaviors of the user in addition to that text. And it's a common term, but we're using that term context engineering now, moving away from prompt engineering. And really, that's because we're sort of hitting the limit now on what we can reasonably expect end users to do in terms of describing what they need from the system. And there's a lot more information that these new agents are demanding, that's visible and available to you based on the behavior of those users. So things like what documents they've interacted with or what systems they've logged into all kind of come into the context that we feed to these systems that give us the best results. And so a pattern going forward is to make sure, for me, that that's all captured and part of the system that you're building, because without that, you're sort of starting from behind. So for me, going forward, this shift to context engineering from prompt engineering. And the good news is that for regulated industries is that oftentimes in sort of an odd way, businesses that are in regulated industries are best set up to take advantage of that now, just because of the fact that they've spent years putting up, at least building the capability to capture audits and and have visibility into all the things that their users are doing. So in this case, regulated industry to me seemed like well positioned to take advantage of this shift to context engineering going forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know we've hit on the security topic quite a bit, but given the industries that we're focused on here, when you guys speak to customers, what are some of the repeated security challenges that are keep coming up for you?
Yeah, Brent mentioned it in one of the earlier questions, but data oversharing has been something that's come up, in the last year and a half, and now it's something that everyone's talking about, which is getting an understanding of, if you're giving the AI or giving, the users too much information and how to monitor that and scale it back, and then also content safety, responsible AI, things like that, which are all pretty much new topics that weren't around and they weren't conversations we were having. But now they're the same ones over and over again. And a lot of those fall into that data security category, but also with responsible AI, that sort of takes on a life of its own, where it's not just security, it's not just compliance, it's also your entire organization and how you want to protect users' privacy and have communication compliance in place in terms of harmful language that's being used or harmful things that AI is being used for. So it's sort of opened up a different world that is sort of tied to security, but and often led by the security teams, but is needed to be embedded across many different groups in order to figure it out, and many different layers. So we've been unraveling a lot of that in terms of how do we bake in the content safety controls, the data security controls, responsible AI, and sort of educate business leaders on how that's being done with the product, but then also how does the organization shift to how their users are leveraging AI and having those conversations with AI in a different way. It's not just one point. You can't just set a control and then that part is done. It's a human element, and it's policies, procedures, tooling. So it's a big conversation. But I would say, yeah, oversharing and content safety and responsible AI have all been new things that constantly come up in these conversations, and depending on their industry and depending on their tool will look a little bit different in terms of how they address it.
Yeah. Speaking of the individual use of AI, I'm curious for each of you, what's one way that you've started using AI in your day-to-day that has really just become essential and how you work and how each of you lead your teams?
Okay. So for me is on every day, I use different type of AI tools for what I wanted to do, from summarizing meeting, reviewing documents, and coming up with architecture, validation, even creating user interfaces that can kind of help us elaborate our demo with our customers. Rather than showing them a Power BI report, we can show them an actual looking application that the customer can imagine what they're looking for. Even from a technical perspective, Brent earlier mentioned writing code, design application, documentation, code reviews. All of those are AI is injected in every activity we do. So AI is basically in every task I do, there is a co-pilot in one way or the other is around me to do every task I do.
Every time I talk to Yard, he says, "Can I show you something?" And it's something AI created or enabled, and it's always something really cool that accelerates the job getting done, right?
Yeah.
Brent, what about you?
Yeah, so I use AI in many of the ways that Yared was talking about, and I'm sure many of the folks that are listening to this conversation are as well, from the standard productivity things day to day to helping with software engineering tasks, et cetera. But to take a step back, I think how it's shifting the way that I'm approaching my job and my life, to be honest, is I'm sort of moving into this model where I see myself as the supervisor of a bunch of different agents and tools to do the things that I need to do. And like for all of us, and they're professionals, there are many different things that we have to do day to day. The model to me is shifting a bit more. So I'm coming out of being the doer on a lot of those things and being the supervisor of agents for a bunch of those tasks as well. So I think that's, if I could summarize like the shift and how I'm using it more recently, Michaela, that's what I would say is that shift of model of like becoming the an agent supervisor, an agent boss for all these tools.
Awesome. Right.
And I'll add to that. I agree with everything Brent and Yard mentioned, and incorporating a lot of those to my day to day. But I also think part of it is a mindset shift in everything that you're working on, or in your personal life or at work. That AI first mindset of how can AI take some additional load off of my plate, with whether it's busy tasks or brainstorming or kind of working through a problem. Just sort of that mindset shift into, you can really always go to it to address any problem. And so I think that's where I started, right? Like talking with AI, and honestly, that was going to be the one that I was going to bring up first, is that voice AI. If you go on a walk and you're talking with AI and kind of getting some brainstorming going, that's one area that I feel like I use a lot on my day to day. But other than that, the typical productivity tasks, those are great. But I would say shifting to showing each other what you're doing with AI versus just doing it and everyone thinking that you did something magical, I think is something that I'm trying to get better at, rather than just creating something and giving it to someone. I'm screen sharing and showing them and trying to make that a part of everyone's day to day and learning from each other, because we all use it in so many different ways. But it's not natural to just start showing people the behind the scenes things you're doing with your day-to-day tasks. So that shift, I think, has been helpful, and see, Brent and Yard do the same for me as well, and kind of showing what you're actually prompting the AI for. What did you do? What steps did you take to get this outcome? Because if it isn't, it's an iterative process when you're using any AI tool. You're never going to just give it one thing and you get this perfect result. And so if you're not showing the sort of the work between the prompt and the result, I don't know that we'll make as much progress. So I think sharing even little things and sort of doing that show and share concept has been something I've incorporated in.
I love that, creating that mind share, because it's moving so quickly that, if you can share what you're doing and help, accelerate the speed of somebody else and being able to leverage that, I think that's awesome. It's just how we work with our clients in these co-development sessions. As we're building pilots or we're deploying something, it's showing the behind the scenes and enabling that for them so they can carry that forward with their team and continue to work upstream into the next phase of development or maturity in their AI journey, right? I think closing it out here with just a takeaway for the audience. If you guys had to leave the audience with one lesson here about AI projects in regulated sectors, what are the takeaways that you would want them to remember from today?
I can go first. I would say not putting off data security, obviously, has been a theme that I've had for today, but that's what I start with every customer. And then I think the second one is having a long-term strategy of what success looks like for using AI, not just doing it because everyone thinks it's a good idea to start using AI, but just having even some notional results at the end that you're looking for?
Yeah, for me is as you can imagine, there will be a lot of AI agents at some point. Start with one that makes sense to majority of the people, and Meredith and we talk about a lot. But each group in your department, in your company, have a lot of AI agent need, and find a systematic way to capture those requirements and incrementally add those agents. Obviously, you need to think about security, data access, even securing your prompts, versioning your prompts, all of those, given all of that, and you can experiment that early age. So as you continue to scale, all of that will be part of it, right? You don't have to think about security when you are on hundreds agent, right? You have to think the foundational infrastructure, does it support me grow with this? I like what Brent was saying. He feel like he's the boss of agents, right? That means we are imagining we're gonna have 10 to 20 to 50 agents that we're gonna be interacting with this. But from regulated industry, how do you organize that? So start small and scaling that up so that you don't get caught at the end reorganizing those agents. So
Yeah, and from my perspective, again, as it relates to regulated industry, what I've seen is that I believe that businesses and agencies that loosely fit this profile of regulated sectors, they actually should be in a great position to start taking advantage of AI because of the data that they collect as a part of normal operations. So that's one. And then the other is, we talked about moving from POC to driving real business value, and how do you get to that? And I would say that's a destination that you can get to in terms of deriving value from an AI initiative, but don't also discount the fact that there are AI tools that can also help you on that journey as well. So things like data security, categorization, helping with your entire data estate to get you on that journey. Don't rule out the fact that AI can also help you with that task as well. So those are the two that I have.
Awesome. Great key takeaways and really awesome conversation, guys. I really enjoyed the conversation and some of the learnings you're able to share. I think one of the things here that we can all take away is that getting started is important. If you haven't taken your first step, if you haven't started thinking about, data security or some of those use cases, or how you're going to, address some of the demand, whether that be internal or external, today's the day, and figuring out what that looks like. And I think it's awesome that as a Microsoft partner, we can offer a bunch of different ways that will support customers in regulated industries and getting started. So if you're curious about Microsoft programs, benefits, supports, the functions that can help you do an AI pilot or figure out what your security landscape is, what are some of your data security gaps, or the risks that you may have before you get started, or you're somewhere along the way, and like you said, Yared, you're looking for that orchestration function of how do you deploy this and figure out how you can be the boss or orchestrator of different agents. It's definitely something that we can help out with. AIS has lots of IP and demos that we can bring to the table. We'd love to show you. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to talk about what you're trying to do with AI, where your organization is today, and how we may be able to support you, whether that's guidance, bringing some tools to the table, just providing an outside perspective, or shaping that long-term roadmap for implementation. Really appreciate you guys spending some time with us today. If you'd like to talk further, please reach out, and happy to talk. Thanks so much.